I dressed like a slut for his birthday party to make him jealous. He never forgave me. Hello, Reddit. My name is Maya, and I'm 36 years old. I am married, and I have 4 kids with my husband, 2 boys and 2 girls. I used to work as a school teacher, and my husband, Jeremy, works as a sales representative. My life used to be safe and secure, the normal life that everyone wanted. Well, until it is not. Everything just exploded in my face, and right now I really do not know how to handle things or even what to tell our kids. Thinking something would have been normal, but acting them out while damning the consequences is stupid. I did that. I thought about it and acted it out, and now I'm stuck with the consequences, and I really don't know how to face them because they're too big a price to pay. My marriage is in some serious issues, and it's all totally my fault, and nothing from Jeremy's side. But like I said, I wasn't exactly thinking of the consequences when I did everything I did. I did 2 stupid, unimaginable things to Jeremy, and now my marriage is on the verge of ruins, or maybe it is ruined, and I really do not want that to happen, which is why I'm here to beg for some sort of help or advice to help me win my husband's affection and love back. I made this mistake on his birthday, and everything has changed since then. I mean, it's been 3 months ever since the party, but Jeremy has not looked me in the eye since, and he wouldn't even talk to me or anything, and he prefers to spend his day working or out with the kids. I'm scared of his silence, and I've tried so hard to get him to forgive me, but he wouldn't even give me the space or the time to talk, or even beg for his forgiveness. I'm really scared that Jeremy will eventually ask for a divorce and will want the kids to go to him, and then our kids love him more than they do me, so it would be easier for them to go with their dad, leaving me utterly alone and miserable. I didn't mean to cheat on Jeremy. I could swear I didn't at first, because the whole thing had been because of a stupid dare, and now it is impressing on my whole life's worth. Jeremy had been my high school sweetheart. We've been together for so many years because of how much we loved each other. Nobody was surprised when we did eventually get married. In fact, everyone envied our love because of how perfect it seemed, and it really was perfect, and it had all been because of Jeremy. Jeremy, right from high school, had been the most perfect gentleman and a romantic and caring one at that. He had always placed my needs before his, and until now, when I decided to ruin our perfect love story, Jeremy has never for once been selfish with anything he has. I met Jeremy when I got into high school back then. His parents had just relocated to our town, and they registered him in the school I attended, and we had become best friends almost immediately. Well, I was the social butterfly, and Jeremy was more of the cool, handsome nerd that everyone liked. So when Jeremy had come to our school, I became his friend instantly because I was struggling with my maths then, and Jeremy seemed very good with it. Soon enough, we were best friends because we told each other everything and anything. We were always in each other's spaces, and if we weren't, we knew exactly where to find the other person even without knowing initially. Jeremy's parents liked me very much and usually invited me over to have dinner with them most times or for lunch on weekends. I even followed them twice on their family vacation, and it was fun. I lived with my mom and my stepfather and their daughter, Nicole, who I didn't like very much. Well, they are nice people, and my stepfather tries very hard to please me because he wanted to get along with me for my mom's sake, but I disliked him because he married my mother. My father had been very abusive to my mother, and although I never knew any of it, because he never did it in front of me, my mom had walked out of the marriage, taking me along with her. I hated her for it because I believed that she just wanted to be with her then lover, who is now my stepfather, because it had only been 3 months after the divorce with my father that she had gotten married to my stepfather. My father never checked on me or requested to see me, even though he was allowed that right according to the statement of the divorce, but he never did. But I just crazily believed that it was my mother that was obstructing him from seeing me because she moved as far away as possible from my father as she could with her new family. Nicole, their daughter, also liked me and wanted very much that I played the big sister role, but I just disliked her because she was clingy and because she looked more like my mother than I ever could. I look nothing like my mom and everything like my dad, and my mother is quite beautiful. Even till now, she looks 25 instead of the 65 she actually is. So I never considered myself part of the family because I couldn't even pretend to be. I looked nothing like the perfect family that they were. So I bonded with outsiders more than I did with my family. I smiled more outside than I did inside. And I tried to make as many friends as possible just to fill up the gap of the loneliness I felt whenever I was with my family. And I didn't have their name. I insisted on retaining my father's name, even though my mom had asked me if I'd allow my stepfather to adopt me and give me his name. I stubbornly just wanted to maintain my father's name because I felt it sounded better than my stepfather's name, and because I didn't even feel like a Michael anyways. So I digressed a bit. Back to it. I spent more time with Jeremy, especially since knowing him, because he knew more than anyone else about my inner turmoil, and he understood me in more ways than was necessary. Falling in love with him was quite easy, and before I knew it, I liked Jeremy so much, and I couldn't even hide it. I got jealous whenever girls came around him, and I would snap at any girl who asked after him. I was protective of him, and I kept giving myself the excuse that it was because I wanted to protect him as my best friend. Not only because I had feelings for him, but eventually, when Jeremy had a girlfriend, I was so hurt. Jeremy had not even told me about her before, and according to him, they met online and had fallen in love. He had even invited her to his family vacation during the summer that year, and I was going with them, but I did not know about the girl until she arrived. The whole summer vacation was horrible for me. Watching Jeremy play love with his new girlfriend while I sat with the adults and listened to their conversations about the country or some other uninteresting topics. I eventually faked being sick so I could be taken back home so I didn't have to watch Jeremy behave all lovesick with the girl. After the vacation, I was determined to do something about her. She was competition, and I hated competition because of how much of anything I'm willing to do to get rid of it. So when Jeremy had come back from the vacation, chatting and telling me all about his girl, I pretended to be happy for them, and then I had executed my plans. I stole her number off his phone, and I texted her pretending to be a boy. Luckily, she didn't have my number, so she didn't know who I was. I took some pictures of Jeremy and me while he was sleeping and made it seem like we were lovers cuddling in bed, and I sent it to her, lying to her that she should just end things with Jeremy, because he really was involved with his best friend and was just toying with her. I had not even expected the whole thing to work, because the picture, when looked at closely, even by a person who wasn't a photographer, would be detected as manipulations, and it would show, obviously, who took the pictures. But I guess the girl didn't stare at the picture too much before sending a breakup text to Jeremy and blocking his number, not even giving him a reason why she was ending things with him. Jeremy was hurt, and for some weeks he wouldn't even let me talk to him, but I persisted, and eventually he got over her, and soon enough was back to the Jeremy I once knew. We were in our final year of high school before anything happened between Jeremy and me, and it had all been orchestrated by me. I was tired of trying to get Jeremy to notice me as a girl, instead of just his best friend, while he admired and dated other girls. So I planned out something different. I usually slept over at Jeremy's place, especially whenever we watched movies late into the night, and we slept off during the movie, and when we were finally up, it was dark outside. His mom would insist I sleep over, but I always slept in the guest room instead of Jeremy's room. It happened so many times that his mom converted the guest room into a mini room for me to use anytime I was around, and my mom knew where I was even without coming to look for me, so that had made my plan seem like a mistake when it wasn't. I watched a movie with Jeremy that day as usual, and I pretended to fall asleep halfway through the movie. Because I was lightweight, Jeremy, who played baseball, had the strength to carry me, so he lifted me and took me to the guest room. When I was sure that everyone else was asleep, I sneaked to Jeremy's room and pretended to have a nightmare. So Jeremy adjusted on his bed and allowed me to sleep beside him. Well, not to go into the full story of that night. Jeremy and I had sex that night. I seduced Jeremy, and we were each other's first that night. I orchestrated many other sexual encounters too, after that night, so Jeremy would have no doubt what it is we were doing, especially because he had tagged that first night a mistake. Eventually, Jeremy asked me to be his girlfriend, and I happily accepted the title. I literally told everyone about it, so it would put no doubt in anyone's head what we were doing, especially the girls. When it was time to leave for university, I had chosen a different school because it was best for educational courses. I had always wanted to be a school teacher, so it felt natural to choose when I had chosen for college, and I wanted to get as far away as possible from my family as I could. But Jeremy had chosen a college close to home, and when I tried to change to the school he had chosen just to be with him, he had insisted I go with what I wanted and had promised to visit and call as often as he could. He kept his promises, of course, but I didn't exactly keep my end of the bargain. When I got to school, college, it was difficult to really blend in because, there were different classes of girls, and I didn't want to feel left out, so I made friends with lots of girls, especially those girls that everybody wanted to be like. And to do that, I had to have money, so hence I started calling my stepfather often, and he would send me the money so he could please me against my mother's wishes. We went out almost every time, and we spent money on ridiculous things. I once bought a candy with the money that could buy 2 pairs of beautiful shoes when my mom took me shopping back home. But I just did that because I wanted to just be part of them, feel important, and feel like I was with them regardless of my skin tone or color. Soon my girls thought it weird I didn't have a boyfriend, especially one who was as rich or richer than we were, like they all did. Well, yes, I didn't tell them about Jeremy. Those girls would laugh at me if they had known I had a boyfriend since high school, and we were together and he wasn't half as rich as I pretended to be. So yes, I made sure not to mention Jeremy to them and vice versa. So I was introduced to John. John was a rude rich boy who thought the world revolved around him, and should I, because he was rich. But I tolerated all his excesses, which were a whole lot because I wanted to just be popular and be able to look down on other people like they did. I know. Now, as I type it, I realize I had stupid reasons for doing the things I did, but back then, it felt like it was my lifeline, and I would just get cut off from breathing if I didn't do the things I did back then and even now. John and I started dating, and of course he gave me money, and it even helped decrease the way I called my stepfather for money. So I liked that, but the only problem was he wanted sex as part of the package deal. I had no choice because I knew he could get another girl if he so wanted, and he knew that fact, which didn't exactly help matters. So I had sex with John, and I didn't tell Jeremy anything about it. I loved Jeremy, and I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him, and even distance didn't do anything to dwindle that love. But I just wanted to belong and feel secure where I was too, which made me do stuff which I didn't even like. Despite the fact that Jeremy and I were each other's first, and we had no record before that, Jeremy was still a better lover than John could ever be, but I just endured it, and most times pretended to have an orgasm just to make him feel like a man. This continued for the whole of an academic session, and when I had gone home for vacation, Jeremy had luckily been on vacation too, so we had been able to hang out and have fun. But that fun had been ruined when Jeremy had found a video clip that John had sent me of himself masturbating and saying John Jr., his male genital, missed me. And then my phone had been with Jeremy when the message had come in because I had given it to him to check through something then. Jeremy had been so angry, and he had just dropped my phone and left without saying anything to me. And when I realized what exactly had made him so angry, I was so scared, and I tried so hard to get Jeremy to forgive me. All through the summer, Jeremy refused to speak to me and kept avoiding me. I had even almost given up hope that he would ever forgive me when the holiday was over, and he still wouldn't let me apologize properly, and it was time to go back to school. But Jeremy had come looking for me, and we made up, and he had made me promise that it would never repeat itself again, and that I was to end things with John immediately. I got back to school, and I desperately promised him I would. I did it when I got to school. I didn't want to lose Jeremy, so I ended things with John, and even cut off the friends that were influencing my decisions, and I focused on graduating and on convincing Jeremy that I was really serious with him and wasn't cheating again. After graduating in about a year, I started working as a school teacher, and Jeremy also got a job with one of the highly paying companies. We also planned our wedding and got married within 2 months. Jeremy had enough money and he built our house, which we live in currently, within 3 months. We were really happy, and after we moved into our house, I got pregnant with our first child. Jeremy was so happy, and he was patient through the pregnancy journey with me, and he assisted me with many things. Pregnancy made me quite snappy and grumpy, but Jeremy didn't mind all that. He just helped me and would apologize even though he wasn't at fault. He bore everything without ever complaining. Soon, we welcomed Rhea, our first daughter, and within 3 months of her birth, I was pregnant again with our first son, Adam. Jeremy didn't think it too close and assisted again with the pregnancy and also with taking care of Rhea despite being busy with work. It was 2 years after giving birth to Adam that I got pregnant with Ryan and Ava, their twins. We were the happy and perfect couple, and everything was all right with us. We had our kids, and our family was beautiful and cute, and Jeremy and I were as in love as we were from the beginning. But then things just fell apart. The company Jeremy worked for decided to sell because they were running at a loss, so their workers were let go of, including Jeremy, and it really affected our family a lot. We had to withdraw the kids to a school with lesser school fees so that we could pay for it, and we had to cut down on our spending too as a family. I didn't like the situation, and I didn't exactly make it easy for Jeremy. I was snappy and angry that he couldn't get another job paying as highly as the last one, especially after he got a job as a sales representative. It annoyed me because I couldn't exactly brag about my husband again to my fellow teachers, and I didn't get access to spend money as I liked to, which I did before. The kids didn't really notice anything. Of course, they were young, and the only change they knew was their school being changed. The rest of their needs were taken care of at the expense of cutting slacks on their parents' needs. I started picking fights about things that weren't even worth fighting over with Jeremy, even though I knew him losing his job was not even his fault, but I just didn't want to believe with his intelligence he couldn't get himself a bigger deal. It was during this period I met Sarah and her uncle David. Sarah had been a new student at the school where I taught, and she was really quiet and never related with people, even her teachers, and I was the class teacher for her class. I thought it had been nerves of moving to a new place and also being overwhelmed by people around at first, so I had not done anything about it. But then it continued for the whole term, and it affected her academically too, so I had to reach out to her guardian, who turned out to be her uncle. When I had contacted him and told him I needed to see him because of his niece, he had refused to come until I insisted several times. David had finally shown up at school, and when I explained what I noticed about his niece to him, he had told me that her parents had to go far away, and they couldn't take a kid with them, so they had left her to him, and he was extremely busy to be dealing with the whims of a child. He then asked me to come over to his place after school, perhaps to teach her, and that he would pay me handsomely for it. When he mentioned the price he would be paying me, I was more than interested in taking the job, because the money was even more than my salary combined for 2 months. So I had accepted the job and started going over to David's place to take Sarah extra lessons. David's house is quite big and lovely, and he is really wealthy, and when he started paying me attention, I felt lucky. He would ask his niece to go to her room after the lessons and then ask me to stay over, and then we would chat and talk about random things, especially relationships. David was a serial flirt, and it was quite obvious from the way he related with me. It was easy for me to fall into his carefully laid out trap. I thought I was really handling everything. I thought I was capable of handling his flirting, Sarah's lessons, and my family, but I had it all wrong. Because David played a mind game, and he seriously won every round, and he had me eating from the palm of his hand before long. That particular day, I had gone to take Sarah's lesson as usual, but when I got there, I met David alone at home, and it was then he told me that Sarah had gone to visit another one of her aunts and wouldn't be back until the next day. And then David convinced me to stay and keep him company since we were friends already. I stayed back, and we drank wine and talked and laughed, and we even played some mini silly games of truth and dare. We had done some daring dares, and one thing led to another, and I allowed David to seduce me into bed. Or is it dared me now? All I know is, we eventually had sex that evening, and the craziness of it all is that I was conscious of everything. I wasn't drunk, and I was hardly tipsy. I knew what I was doing, and yet stupidly, I went along with everything. When I got home, Jeremy had been waiting for me, and when he asked why I had been a while, I just snapped at him and had left him there in the living room to go take my shower and get rid of the evidence of my sin. I snapped at him because I didn't want him asking questions that I had no answer to and lying about things that I did too. It was the second time I was cheating on Jeremy, and I didn't know what to think about it. But then the thoughts became clear that night when I received a hefty sum of money from David, and he texted to tell me it wasn't for his niece's lessons, but a thank you for the wonderful sex. I was happy I got that amount of money, and the guilt was replaced almost immediately with joy and expectancy. The guilt was there, yes, but it was reduced and replaced by greed and something more. I started going more often to David's place, even on weekends that I wasn't supposed to even take Sarah's lessons, just to have sex and more sex with David, and he gave me more money. Well, not exactly given. He was paying me for a service I was rendering. Like a slut, but I was past caring because I just wanted the money. I even quit my job as a school teacher, but I didn't tell Jeremy. I left the house in time like I was still under a payroll. I came back late as usual, and Jeremy never suspected me. David started buying me dresses that showed off more of my skin than I was willing to expose, but I wanted to please him because of the money he was giving me. One day, I had worn one of the shorts and tops that showed nearly all of my breasts at home. That day, David had gone out of town, so I was free to stay home. I lied to Jeremy that we had a free day from school, and he believed me, and he had left for work while taking the kids with him to drop them off at school, so I was free and at home, and I felt the need to do some chores around the house. After I was done with the chores, I had worn a flimsy see-through top and a very short knicker that showed half of my bottom, and I was just snacking while watching a movie when Jeremy had walked in and saw me in my clothes. It had been too late to hide, and Jeremy had disapproved of my clothes. But it had gotten me really upset that instead of commenting on how sexy I looked, he had complained about it and left the house just after picking up what he forgot. I felt like he didn't find me attractive anymore, and then again, our sex life had dwindled. Now that I think about it, it has been because of me. I was always at David's place and almost always came home in the evenings and very tired too. Most times when Jeremy wanted to touch me, I snapped at him and then went ahead to nag about how working was killing me because he wasn't doing his duty as a man. So Jeremy stopped trying to get me to have sex with him after a while. But at that point, especially after he saw my clothes and complained about how indecent it looked, I had felt that he didn't find me attractive and sexy anymore, and I wanted more than ever to make him jealous. Jeremy's birthday was coming up, and so was our anniversary. We had our wedding on his birthday, so we celebrated both events together every year, mostly with us in the evening. I would cook, and we would open a bottle of champagne and then dance to our favorite song together, and then have an all-night sex session. But this time, I decided to do a little party for his birthday, and because I had more money than I knew what to do with, it was easy to plan. I couldn't spend the money anyhow to avoid Jeremy suspecting me, so I just bought a few things. And most times I would remove the label and the price tag and get rid of them, and make it look like some cheap brand clothes instead of the expensive thing it actually was, just so I didn't get suspected. I knew that Jeremy would never forgive me if he ever found out about David, but I just couldn't stop sleeping with David. I know. I regret everything now because, in the end, Jeremy has found out, and it's just an awful disaster, really. I planned a surprise birthday party for Jeremy because I wanted him to see what he was missing. I wanted him to see how sexy I was, and my idea had been that by the time he saw how other men stared at me at his party, he would realize what he was missing. So I did everything secretly, and since I was already getting so good at keeping a secret, my affair, it was easy to plan the whole birthday surprise behind his back. Although 2 weeks before Jeremy's birthday, something had happened that had scared me to death, and I thought it all over, but it had only just exploded in my face on the day of the party. I couldn't go to see David because Jeremy was around through that week, which made David agitated. He kept calling and texting me to come over, but I couldn't. One time during the week, he had texted me, telling me he wanted to see me, and that I should find a way of excusing myself from my husband and come over to see him. And my phone had been with my husband because he had been checking through some family picture ideas I had saved on my phone. When I came back into the room, my phone was on the bed, and Jeremy was out of the room. When I saw the message, I panicked and thought Jeremy had seen it, but he didn't act awkwardly after that day, so I assumed he didn't see the text and relaxed. But he did. And the craziest thing was I didn't notice, because I was too busy planning the stupidest party of my life. The day of the party came, and I had not bothered wishing Jeremy a happy birthday. I even pretended not to know that it was his birthday. He didn't say anything about it and just took his bath and went to work while taking the kids to school. So after they left, it gave me enough time to prepare the party and also invite the people I knew he wanted around. I was brave enough to even invite my lover, David, to the party, and he hadn't been able to show up because work had called. Soon after I was done with the planning, I took a shower, then wore the dress I bought for the party, a red dress that screamed expensive and yet slutty. Its length was just slightly above my mid-thigh, and the dress made my breasts look like they were spilling out of the dress any time soon. To me, it had looked sexy, and it would bring back instantly all the attraction between us. But to Jeremy, it had looked like what it exactly was, a slutty dress, and he had been so angry. But then, he looked across the room and saw David. He just went across the room and said something to him, but I saw David grow cold, and his eyes grew wild, and he had left almost immediately. When I went after him to ask what it was about, he had quickly told me that Jeremy knew everything and had ordered him to leave before he did something stupid to him. I was so shocked and scared, and eventually, halfway through the party, Jeremy had stopped it and asked everyone to leave. I couldn't even argue or say anything because of what I heard from David. And now it's been months, and Jeremy is still keeping mute, and it's so scary. Please, guys, help me save my marriage. Please. I really cannot lose Jeremy and my kids. Please. Update. Hello, Reddit. It's so sad how my life has turned out. A pity, even. When I came here on this app, I came knowing that I did a bad thing, a horrible thing, in fact, and I had come begging to see if there was anyone who would understand how terrible I feel about everything, and perhaps give me some sort of advice or help of some sort, so I could at least save my doomed marriage. But it had been an entirely different answer, or is it the answer that I got? You guys have ensured to add more pain to my already painful existence with your harsh words and comments. It's flesh-digging and painful that most times, after going through some of your comments, I would just close my laptop and lay in bed and cry myself to sleep. Well, you guys are right. That's the most painful thing. You guys are right, and it feels totally awful knowing that your comments are right. I don't deserve Jeremy. Not after everything I've done, and apparently he thinks so too. Because 6 months after the party, I'm presented with a divorce and child custody lawsuit. Yes, what I've feared all this while is finally happening. Jeremy is divorcing me. He meant it when he said he wasn't going to forgive my indiscretion a second time, and I messed up badly. Jeremy had forgiven the first one because he loved me, and he gave me a chance to choose never to hurt him again. But I did. I hurt him, and I broke our marriage vows, and now I am paying a very high price for everything I've done. I'm losing my home, my husband, and my kids. That thought alone just knocks the breath out of my lungs in the most brutal way possible whenever I think about it. I really am ruined, and I did it all to myself with no help or anything. I did it all alone. I lost the one thing that is my whole life, and now I'm so ruined. So ruined. Update. Hello, Reddit. This is, well, my very last post here. I've thought it through, and I realized that I really should stop bugging people who care nothing about me with my sob story. But then again, I have no one else to do that with. I've lost my best friend and husband, and even if I had my kids with me, which I don't, I cannot tell them anything because they're too young to understand. And if they did understand, I'd probably be hated by them. So yes, here's the only place I could come back to and pour out my heart. Well, I'm officially divorced and without any access to my kids. Jeremy sent me out of the house as soon as the divorce was finalized, and I live in a room I rented not far away from the house so I can torment myself with the view of them when they leave and then come back in the evening. I will never be part of that again, and it hurts so badly knowing that I was the one responsible for everything. It really is hard trying to just hurt less. I cannot even do that. I did a horrible thing, and the consequences are quite damning. I should never have allowed David close to me ever. That cheap bastard had been pretending to be who he was not. Apparently, Sarah's parents had gone on a vacation to celebrate their anniversary, but got held up with the delivery of their second child, and they couldn't travel unless approved by a doctor. So David was asked to stay over at their house and watch their child, and also help handle things in the company. So he owned nothing from the beginning and had only been stealing his brother's company funds, and he was caught and thrown out. So yes, I got caught. No scratch that. I walked into this trap, the trap of a lying, conniving, selfish person, and now I'm paying a very high price for my foolishness. The fact that Jeremy would find someone new, someone who would be a mother to my own kids because I was too caught up in cheating to do so myself. So someone else will do that, and that thought is almost as scary as a death sentence. I wish I could undo the wrongs I did. I wish I had been a better wife and mother. I would still be happily married and not be in all of this mess if I hadn't thought of cheating. I would be a mom and a wife, but I can't be any of that anymore. I cheated my way out of it, and now I'm just a hopeless nobody with nothing and no one on her side, and my future seems as blank as an empty sheet. Well, I sure hope that you guys aren't ending up like I did. Thanks and goodbye.